Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar, Building Your Government Hybrid Cloud Strategy Using the New South Wales Government Cloud Policy. My name's Paul Cooper and I'll be your moderator for today. I have a background in digital strategy, and one of the more interesting government roles I fulfilled was as Acting Director for Strategy and Governance for Senatex Victoria during their cloud transition period. So I'm particularly excited to be hearing from this expert panel on cloud strategies. Now, before we begin, there's a few housekeeping items to review. This webinar is being recorded and you're currently in listen-only mode. You can submit any questions you have throughout the time of this webinar via the questions function on your screen, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I am present today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Once the webinar is over, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. So joining us today, we have George Kurian, Chief Executive Officer, NetApp, Simon Geraghty, Executive Director, Government Technology Platforms, New South Wales Department of Customer Service, Brendan Rogers, New South Wales Public Sector Lead, NetApp, Matt Brown, Executive Director, IT Customer Engagement, NetApp, and Kieran McGarry, Director, Technology and Customer Services, eHealth. So welcome all, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'll now hand over to George to present. George, would you like to introduce yourself briefly before your presentation?
Thank you, Paul. I am glad to be here and excited to join you. I have been at NetApp, a leading provider of storage and data management solutions for about 10 years, and prior to that had various different roles in technology industries. I've been the CEO of NetApp for the last 5.5 years. I just want to begin by saying I hope that you and your families are safe after the intense rain and flooding in New South Wales this past week. And I'd like to just welcome you to today's seminar. For many years, we've said the world is changing, but no one could have predicted the incredible pace of transformation we've seen introduced by the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last year, because of the inability for all of us to connect in our traditional ways with each other, we've had to rely on digital connections, just like we are engaged in today. And as the Honorable Victor Dominello, New South Wales Minister for Customer Services, said, digital government is no longer an end goal in itself, but a means to go further and deliver even better government services. That's why during this event, we'll talk about the new New South Wales Government Cloud Policy, the move from private to public cloud, and the important role that we at NetApp can play in helping government agencies like you unlock the best of cloud. Digital transformation and digitization has several benefits. Within the public sector, it provides crucial services to stakeholders who otherwise could have been underserved. For example, you can expand accessibility of services 24/7, especially to rural or underserved populations. You can reduce the time and work required to complete basic tasks for your citizens. You can inform them better about the capabilities that the government has to offer them, or to allow them to take care of themselves, especially at times of crisis, pandemic, flooding, and various other natural disasters. And finally, you can streamline processes and lower costs. So the benefits of digitization are apparent now far more than even a year ago, because frankly, we've lived in a digital world. And so what we've seen across the world is the rapid acceleration of every institution wanting to go faster and further with digital capabilities. Speed and agility are critical for organizations to succeed in the modern world, respond to changes in their operating environment, deal with new types of stakeholders, and frankly, integrate new capabilities. Cloud, broadly defined, is the technology platform to operate your digital organization, to engage your stakeholders, your own team, and data is at the heart of everything. Data enables you to understand your stakeholder far better and serve them in ways that they would be most delighted by. We call cloud the technology platform for digital business and digital organizations, data as the currency for a digital organization. And NetApp has been working for many years to build the capabilities to help our customers succeed in data-driven hybrid IT. It's really important as you think about how to take advantage of cloud-based services and capabilities that you build an organizational structure, you integrate in new capabilities, and that you think comprehensively of data as a resource to serve your citizens. We at NetApp, for example, organizationally created agile development labs and a dedicated cloud business unit. You'll hear about how our IT team has built a really capable hybrid cloud architecture that integrates the best of public cloud with the requirements and the security that a private cloud can offer, so that you can adapt your portfolio to have the best services for your citizens. What we at NetApp specialize in is to help you manage data consistently across multiple clouds and within your own data centers. This software-based architecture is something that we call a data fabric. And we talk to our clients about rethinking infrastructure, moving away from thinking about physical data centers to logical data fabric. As part of our data fabric, we provide integrated data services to help you to move data and applications efficiently to the cloud of your choice, to back up, archive, and instantly recover data, keep it compliant and secure from attacks like ransomware, and to meet the requirements of ever-deepening data privacy regulations and aspirations of people all around the world. Second, in addition to continuously optimizing and automating storage and data management on the world's leading clouds, we also continuously and dynamically optimize cloud computing resources so that your entire application and infrastructure can move synchronously to the changing requirements of your users. What this allows you to have is an infrastructure that's application-centric, with data integrated with the data fabric, giving you better performance, agility, and significantly reduced cost. And we help you monitor all of this infrastructure and data across all the leading clouds so that you can diagnose problems, limit downtime. And we offer all of these capabilities as a service from NetApp so that you can mix and match between the different procurement models that's right for your organization. So what does that mean for you? Let me give you 3 simple examples. First, it helps you demand more from your cloud. For example, we help you build, deploy, and optimize new applications much more quickly on public, hybrid, or multi-cloud environments, as we did with the University of Wollongong, transforming their data into an asset for their organization. We help you embrace the best of both public and private clouds so that you can deploy and scale your digital platform initiatives with the best hybrid cloud like the Children's Cancer Institute does. And we help you consolidate, modernize, simplify, and automate your data center infrastructure with a ready path to the cloud to enable you to make data as a service available to your stakeholders, similarly to what we have done with eHealth, who you will hear from today. So there's a great lineup of speakers on today's events, and I hope you'll find the discussions around the New South Wales Cloud First policy, the benefits of a hybrid cloud approach, and consumption models informative and beneficial for your team and organization. Now, Paul, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to this audience. I'll pass this back to you. Be safe and well.
Thank you very much, George, for your introductory comments. They were very interesting, and I really liked your statement about data is the currency. I thought that's a great framing up. So we look forward, of course, to the currency being further valued and increasing. I'll hand over now to Simon Geraghty, Executive Director, Government Technology Platforms, New South Wales Department of Customer Service. Thanks for joining us, Simon. Could you firstly tell us a little bit about your role and what you'll be discussing with us today? Simon, we just can't hear you yet.
Sorry. Thanks, Paul. It's a pleasure to be talking to you about how the New South Wales Government is moving to cloud. I'm just working on sharing a presentation here. And there we go.
Yep, that's coming through fine.
There we are. That's great. Thanks, Paul. So yes, the New South Wales Cloud First policy and its benefits. So the demand for government services, as George just has outlined, to meet citizens' need continues to drive a large range of agency IT use cases, which must balance maintenance of legacy platforms in our hybrid infrastructure with investment in more responsive contemporary services. And so to better address those needs, the New South Wales Government is making the strategic shift to cloud consumption using public cloud services. The government launched its new cloud strategy and policy in October 2020. It's an ambitious strategy developed in collaboration with all government departments to bring real-world relevance to how agencies are consuming and planning to consume cloud services into the future. And the policy combines the previous cloud and data center policies to promote secure, efficient, and financially sound consumption of private and public cloud services. The policy is a public cloud first policy, meaning that agencies must make use of public cloud services as the default. Where public cloud services are not suitable for agency requirements, private cloud services provided through GovDC, the government data centres, can be used. And where these services are not suitable, other private cloud services can be used by exception. The vision for cloud consumption across New South Wales Government is to enable government-wide adoption of public cloud services in an aligned and secure manner to accelerate innovation, modernise service delivery, and drive better outcomes for the citizens of New South Wales. So the cloud policy and strategy provide direction and guidance to enable agencies to achieve the following outcomes. Adhering to the policy and strategy direction and guidance will ensure agency assets and data are secured. Agencies receive common direction in the consumption of cloud services, allowing them to make consistent usage of these services. The policy guides agencies in consuming cloud services to modernise their IT and digital service delivery. It enables modernisation through alignment to updated business processes for procurement, security, and consumption of cloud services. And by defining and guiding the use of hybrid cloud, the policy and strategy ensure alignment of cloud service consumption across New South Wales Government in accordance with government strategic objectives and the priorities set out in the Beyond Digital strategy. Agencies are enabled to consume new cloud capabilities such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics. By leveraging cloud services, agencies will be able to keep up with technologies released by industry without having to build and maintain each capability. Agencies will contribute to optimizing commercial outcomes by using strategic partnerships with public cloud service providers, using whole of government agreements and purchasing arrangements that have been established and referred to in the policy and strategy. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks very much, Simon. So Simon, in just thinking about your presentation there, how can agencies use location for data to avoid risk and increase security?
That's a good question. So let me go back in time a little bit. The Government Data Centre Reform Program has been an outstanding success. The partnership with Metronode, now owned by Equinix, to build 2 government data centres in Silverwater and Unanderra in 2012 was the foundation of a transformation of the level of service that agencies provide to patients, students, travellers and the citizens of New South Wales. For example, New South Wales Health, and I was there at the time, moved out of aged facilities with poor reliability on floodplains, very topical at the moment, into secure, reliable, highly redundant, ISO certified Tier 3 facilities. Think about the impact on clinicians, nurses and patients across over 200 hospitals and how they were able to deliver significant improvements in patient care and health outcomes. It's not hard to imagine that they might have saved a few lives as a result. The GovDC service, as we call it, has responded to the changing demands of customer agencies and industry trends. It's no longer just a co-location play. The original marketplace of service providers has evolved into the GovDC cloud offering, providing agencies with access to on-premise, as a service, and public and private cloud offerings from a range of vendors, including NetApp. This has been very successful for agencies, and we're always looking to introduce new vendors and new capabilities to support agencies. The GovDC service has recently introduced an innovation space designed to provide a low-cost barrier for agencies and vendors to trial innovative technologies and solutions. Government success in delivering digital services to citizens and businesses depends on trust. Trust that the security and privacy of data held by agencies and industry partners will always be protected. That is why New South Wales Government is investing $240 million over the next 3 years to uplift cybersecurity capabilities across all agencies. Public cloud offers better security than most organisations can achieve with private cloud or on-premise solutions.
Thanks, Simon. Well, that's a significant amount of investment there in cybersecurity, and I'm very pleased to hear that. I'm just going to ask you another question, but just a reminder to audience that feel free to pop questions through using the questions tab, and we'll pick those up and we will address those with the panel towards the end. And look, I know that connectivity is being a little bit patchy at the moment around the state, in New South Wales in particular. I think the bad weather is possibly affecting some of that. So we'll do our best with if anybody drops out during that period. But I'd like to just go on. You've mentioned about the security, Simon. Allied with that is around cloud contingency plans. So what do you think agencies should be planning now?
Just click to the next slide. So clusters or departments are required to have their own aligned cloud strategy by June 2021. So aligned with the whole of government cloud strategy and policy, each of the departments will have their own cloud strategy. And I'd like to cite ADAPT's 2020 cloud migration study that showed while the value of cloud is proven, there are 6 common challenges on the journey to cloud, each with their own set of drivers. So communicating and translating the business value of cloud to executive leadership is one of the challenges. Understanding, planning and managing the expected cost of cloud operations, managing dependencies, sprawl, data consistency, and reducing process complexity. Navigating multi-cloud, configuring mission-critical apps, reducing refactoring time and costs. Improving data security posture, resilience, compliance, and governance. And right-sizing IT to avoid wasted redundancy, moving on from on-premise to free up real estate. So all of those challenges play into the department's contingency plans around their existing assets and their planned migration to cloud. So my department, DCS, has released a cloud adoption framework to provide agencies with a common approach for adopting and consuming public cloud services consistently. This document provides agencies with practical guidance in developing their cloud strategy, writing a business case for cloud, selecting appropriate partners, procuring, consuming, and securing cloud, as well as considering the right team, capabilities, and operating model to support cloud service consumption. And I'll just refer to the graphic on the right of this slide. It shows 5 themes and the 3 top priorities for each of those themes to ensure agency success in achieving the vision of cloud adoption in New South Wales government agencies.
Yes, I really like that graphic too. That's really good to see there. Just look what you've referred to cloud many times, and just a reminder, I think, to the audience would be good here on what you see as the key differences between the private, public, and community clouds.
Sure. The following cloud services are available to New South Wales government agencies under the new policy. Public cloud services operated by third-party cloud service providers, and that's not just the big 3. Private cloud services through GovDC managed and operated data centres. And we've got several of those in the marketplace, and we've got several agencies that are also running their own private cloud operations. And dedicated network interconnects between private and public cloud services. So government agencies are adopting public and private cloud in line with their business strategy, investment opportunities, internal capabilities, and external partnerships. For example, eHealth New South Wales, and Kieran's here today to talk about this, is now able to provide health IT teams with the ability to spin up and down virtual and container instances using cloud technologies in public cloud. And they're developing a secure managed private cloud in GovDC.
Okay, well, given that you've given us a quick update on what the agencies are doing there, is there anything else you'd like to say on your experience of working with the agencies and supporting local SMEs?
Agencies engage a wide range of providers in the ICT industry, from huge global players to sovereign small and medium enterprises, or SMEs. And SMEs will receive a greater slice of ICT procurement spend thanks to the New South Wales government accepting a suite of recommendations from its ICT and Digital Sovereign Procurement Task Force. Among the recommendations supported by the New South Wales government are measures to benefit startups, Aboriginal-owned, disability and regional enterprises.
Well, I think it's time now for us to hear from our audience. We're going to push a little poll out to the audience at the moment. So you should see a little widget appearing on your screen for the polls, or if not, you can press on the polls tab. But we'll just get that one coming through to you now. And the first question is, do you understand the New South Wales Cloud First policy and its benefits? Let's have a little look. I'm seeing the poll widget appearing on my thing. You might need to press on the polls tab if that is not pushing its way up on your screen. And just to the presenters, my fellow colleagues here, you need to respond to in order to be able to see the votes, I think, on this platform.
So, Paul, I think I'll say yes, I do understand the Cloud First policy.
That's great. Well, I put on I needed more information, so that's terrific. It looks like we're getting, yep, we've had just about everyone vote so far. We've got about 50 people on the session here with us, which is great. Looks like majority of people, 65%, are saying they do understand the Cloud First policy and its benefits, which is terrific. 32% said they need more information, and I suspect only one person has said not applicable to them. So was that a surprise? Did you expect that response back from people on that poll?
Look, Paul, I think it's very pleasing that nearly 2/3 of people doing this poll are saying that they understand the benefits of the Cloud First policy. That's great, and And for those needing more information, that's a hint to us to do a little bit better in our communication. And that's why I'm here today.
That's great. All right, well, just very briefly to continue on, how do agencies request alternatives to the public cloud? You know, if they want to use the community or private, do you need an exception to move to a community cloud, for example?
Under the policy, you do need an exception approval. And it's a very good question because it hasn't happened yet. So the policy's been out since October 2020. But broadly, the process is to write to DCS, the Department of Customer Service, requesting an exception, which will be reviewed by both DCS, my team, and the ICT Digital Leadership Group, which is made up of the CIOs of all of the 9 clusters or departments, with final approval required by the Delivery and Performance Committee, or DAPCO. It's important to understand that public cloud is not the only place workloads can go. By 2019, over 27 agencies were hosted in GovDC with around 800 racks of infrastructure. 14 GovDC cloud vendors, including NetApp and service providers, occupied another 160 racks, and educational local government organisations occupied another 70 racks. So if you think about that, that's 3 megawatts of active load, over 1,000 racks in 2 data centres. We've spent many millions of dollars transitioning in and building that workload over 7 years, and we're not about to exit tomorrow and send it all to the public cloud. Agencies will continue to manage these workloads. For example, if an agency needs to expand their existing storage as a service consumption from a marketplace provider such as NetApp, then they can do that. However, a major infrastructure refresh is the right time to be looking at a public cloud first option. Similarly, implementing a new major capability like the replacement of the legacy COPS system in New South Wales Police is the time to be considering cloud as an option. That's why New South Wales Police has selected US-based public safety software provider Mark 43 to deliver the first crucial components of the state's new cloud-based integrated policing operating system, or IPOS. If the type of workload or other considerations mean that public cloud is not suitable, that is the time to seek an exception to the policy.
Okay, and just very briefly, what's your opinion on the future state of government cloud, Simon?
Well, that requires a crystal ball, but let me have a go. Tim Crawford from Avoa in the US sees 4 fundamental models of cloud emerging: public cloud, regionalized public cloud, industry-specific public and private cloud, and private cloud for a single company. For the first 7 years of GovDC, since 2013 when doors opened, workload climbed as agencies migrated in and vendors scaled marketplace as a service offerings. In the last year, demand has peaked, reflecting the completion of migration programs and the increasing adoption of public cloud services. The goals set out in the policy include that by 2023, agencies are using public cloud for a minimum of 25% of their IT workload. Less than 5% of major investments require an exception from the policy, and a 25% reduction in IT capital expenditure. What's already clear is that many agencies are transitioning from buying tin to buying services. This is a fundamental transformation from the capital investment cycles of infrastructure to an OPEX model where the problem of infrastructure modernization disappears. ADAPT's 2020 cloud migration study, again, showed a continued adoption of cloud, generally with a hybrid approach, being accelerated at scale by the COVID-19 pandemic, as George mentioned. The study showed private sector on-premise workloads will fall from around 50% to 30% over the next 2 years. And in the public sector, it will fall from 60% on-prem to 35% over the next 2 years, with public cloud picking up most of that change. As you can see, many agencies are already well advanced on this exciting journeys, and others are just starting. And I thought, just to finish off, I might leave you with a couple of resources that might help you on your own journey.
Thanks very much for that, Simon. I'm not sure if it's possible for us to do this online at the moment in terms of grabbing those and putting them out on the chat. But if not, we'll certainly share those with people after the webinar this morning. So thank you very much for sharing that. I'm going to hand over now to, I might just ask you to stop sharing your screen there too, please, Simon. Might hand over now to Brendan, assuming we've got you back. I know we're struggling a little bit with your connection there, Brendan. If you'd just quickly like to introduce yourself and your role at NetApp, and then I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So Brendan
Rogers. I'm sorry, I'm unable to stop sharing my screen.
No, it's fine. It's all good.
I can't figure out how to do that.
No, it's not coming up. It's all good.
It's worked. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
So Brendan Rogers. I've been with NetApp for the past 5.5 years, working with the public sector in New South Wales in particular.
Excellent. And look, I suppose a question that comes to mind after that presentation from Simon is, with the policy in place, how's NetApp enabling customers with NetApp New South Wales Government Cloud?
Well, good question. I think, we've heard from George Kurian talk about what NetApp's been doing with the public cloud providers for the past 5.5 years, 6 years. I've been fortunate enough to be here to see a lot of that come to fruition and to be able to deliver on that. And in addition to this, we've been quite fortunate in New South Wales in particular to be able to partner with Simon's team to build out a full service infrastructure as a service community cloud in GovDC. This platform, and the beauty of this platform, is actually enables SMEs to build and tailor services that they can offer to New South Wales government. So you can see that over the past 3 years, we've now been able to join and partner with New South Wales government on the initiatives that they have from the beginning with regards to GovDC into the cloud policy, and also then supporting local SMEs.
Thanks very much for that, Brendan. All right, well, I'm going to hand over now to Matt Brown, who's Exec Director, IT Customer Engagement for NetApp, to hear his knowledge on hybrid cloud. Matt, would you like to also start with a quick personal intro?
Sure, and I'll share some top of mind as well. So my name is Matt Brown. I work directly for NetApp's CIO, and I currently lead a program called NetApp on NetApp. Been at NetApp for 21 years, and in this role, it's really a customer-facing role. I get the great privilege to speak to hundreds of global customers every year, and most recently, I work with the United States government agencies. I also work with many government agencies all around the world, like the Canadian government and its various agencies, as well as the Israeli government. I've been working with them on the Ministry of Defense. In addition, last week, I spent a lot of time with even local municipalities, even airports and universities. So I get it when government agencies are looking for solutions. It is all about security, data governance, and costs, and managing costs are obviously paramount. I think they're paramount for everybody in IT. And before we get to some questions, let me just share some top of mind, Paul, to get your questions going. As Simon mentioned, in my experience, I really see hybrid cloud really helping government customers by improving data control, data security, and really enabling data efficiency. Also moving from CapEx to OpEx, and if done right, really reducing total cost of ownership. As George mentioned, data certainly is the new currency. It is all about the data. And so how do we, create an architecture then that can truly allow that value for both us in the public sector as well as in the private sector to truly enable that value, maximizing it, and really treat data as a true asset. Just as Simon mentioned, we in NetApp IT also leverage a data adjacency concept, a strategy, really leveraging the Equinix solution. We found Equinix to be a great scalable model to not just leverage one cloud, but all the cloud providers in a way that really allows better control of our data, allows us to really centralize the single source of data and control who accesses it, making copies, and really bringing control around that data governance. The cloud adjacent data center also allows us to control a little bit of costs, understand really the management more of the data, and more important, control the cost of the data at rest. As far as our own NetApp IT use cases go, NetApp being a public company, we use it in many different areas. We use it to create our products and DevOps. We're a global CI/CD shop with 3,000 developers all over the world. Like many government agencies, we want to exercise data analytics and bring data science as a center of excellence. We're interested, as Simon was also talking about, by creating infrastructure, platform, and containers as a service, and leveraging all of the different clouds for the unique capabilities. And within NetApp, we have something called Active IQ, which is kind of an Internet of Things. So being able to collect information from all of our products all around the world is very important for us to provide better service to our customers. Hopefully it gives you some fodder for questions, Paul.
Yeah, I am just making a note of that, Active IQ. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So just Bill, would you like to just expand a little bit further on your experience with hybrid clouds globally?
Most certainly. So NetApp IT really started our hybrid cloud journey when really there was only AWS. So we've been in the hybrid cloud world with a private Equinix solution and AWS since 2015. We currently manage over 100 petabytes of storage globally. So again, not all of that's completely active data. So managing costs and again, making that data available where it's needed to expand our business is really, really important. As I mentioned, CI/CD, the development process is key. As George had mentioned, last 4 years, we really George transformed NetApp to being a fully digital organization. Part of that was making sure our software could actually run across cloud platforms. And we've done that through this continuous integration, continuous development process by enabling and expanding that service to our 3,000 developers across the world. We also use DevOps for our internal applications and creating new capabilities internally for our folks in sales and support. We also have used the hybrid cloud, and I would argue this is probably one of the key areas, to increase the speed of automation, improve our innovation, to really unleash innovation in our world, to really allow quick proofs of concepts, to fail fast where needed, and really take what works and actually create products. Again, leveraging the hybrid cloud for data analytics in many areas, from marketing to product development, to even understanding our industry better. And also, and one of the key areas for us is really to create services that differentiate us in the support arena. So we have a global support with tens of thousands of customers all over the world. And we've used the hybrid cloud to improve support either through Active IQ, through our self-service module that really allows customers to understand how they use their storage assets, and even improve when we have support issues to improve global core uploads.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear those experiences you've had. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about the benefits that private cloud providers have over the 3 large public cloud providers already in the market.
Excellent question, Paul. I think for an infrastructure team, one of the areas that I think we often find challenges in is that when you're trying to manage everything on-prem, you have to build to peak. Unfortunately, everything doesn't run to peak. Regardless, though, you still have to pay for the same space, power, cooling, the same licenses. It requires a lot of administration. When we start to move to the cloud, we can now move to a pay-as-you-go model. So I'm maximizing my efficiencies of my infrastructure. I can now scale up almost on a moment's notice. And as long as I'm providing better governance, I can do that and actually start to save money. In one use case, we have centralized a 5 petabyte data lake that's really used to analyze our software performance. And it has access to all 3 of the major hyperscalers. This allows different groups to make copies of data for project work and work independently and work with the tools that they find the most convenient. So we're very able to very quickly respond to the end user needs. We also have the ability to adopt new services as providers evolve their capabilities with our cloud adjacent strategies.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And so building on that, how have NetApp used the hybrid cloud to grow business and save costs? You mentioned the cost reduction aspect a little earlier.
I'll give you some real numbers now. So first, when you talk about grow the business, When we were relying on all on-prem solutions, it was an artificial construct. We could only scale to what we had built. When we moved into the cloud and can start leveraging that scalable asset, especially in DevOps, we were able to create or increase our go-to-market by 12 times. Where it was used to taking us years to do, we can now do in months, if not weeks, and I would argue even in some cases days. In our development specifically for our Active IQ, our systems of differentiation for our customer support, we actually reduced costs by half. And we're generating more capabilities faster. In the same case, we reduced our on-prem server nodes by 6 times. And for enterprise IT, we plan to move our entire non-prod environments out to a cloud to really unleash that scalability and to really allow the developers more control of their environments and actually turn those development environments off when they're not being used. And we do believe we'll get even increased savings there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about turning off the environments. It's one thing to actually, spin them up in different places, but you've got to turn them off. So that's interesting. Well, look, we'll hand over now to Kieran McGarry, Director Technology and Customer Service eHealth for the Customer Insight session. Once again, Kieran, if you care to give us a brief intro.
Yeah, good day, everybody. Good morning. Still morning. I'm interested at the URL I'm looking at is called app.livestorm. I think that's pretty apt for the conditions we're dealing with at the moment. So I hope you can all hear me okay. So look, it's interesting conversation. Of course, Paul, Simon and I go back quite a way, and Simon worked here at Health. And we were one of the early adopters or early tenants or anchor tenants, if you like, of GovDC in its earlier days back in 2012-13. So we're pretty well aligned with the strategy as outlined by Simon. We're reasonably, I wouldn't say we're well advanced, but we're on our way to being well advanced around the implementation of strategies supporting both public and private on-prem cloud. But of course, like everything else, this is a fairly challenging thing to do. Sorry, let me stop for just a moment. I'm going to give some context here before I get started on that. So eHealth is the shared service organization for people on the phone. It's the shared service organization that supports New South Wales Health. So we obviously support the public health system within New South Wales, which is a fairly large employer, if you like, about 160,000 people. And as Simon has said earlier, over 220 odd hospitals that we support across New South Wales. So we have a pretty large and significant infrastructure within our environment. And I think a lot of the conversation that has been on this call so far has actually resonated very well with us as we look at being that early adopters. So anything that we've put into the GovDCs in the early part of this journey, around about 2013-14, of course, is now very much part of a major infrastructure refresh program. So we've been looking for some time at how we do that. And we've, I think, been engaged with Simon and his team and the other agencies through the appropriate authorities to come up with and to participate in the development of the cloud strategy. So we're living that as we speak. I think the challenges that we face, of course, are significant. We've got a lot of legacy applications. We've got multiple. We've got a 365 by 24-hour support requirement across our infrastructure. The hospitals never close. So making changes has to be basically or very delicately handled, shall I say. We've also, of course, in the last 15 months had to deal with the challenge of COVID. And that has been both a real issue for us, but also has enabled us to actually progress with much more speed in certain areas of our uplift journey. I think the public-private cloud strategy is something that we are working towards. Paul, we're challenging the old, I guess, tenets of process around things like finance and procurement. We're dealing with the people issues and challenges that come with this migration. We're trying to transform our teams as we do this. And of course, we have the challenge of what we do in a very significant legacy environment. So I think specifically in the context of NetApp and the conversation that we've been engaging with them, NetApp has been a critical and a strategic supplier to us for, well, pretty much for all of our time, certainly in GovDC. We've worked with them over the past number of years, but specifically over the last 18 months on the implementation of that as a service model that facilitates us moving towards the larger or the longer term strategies that's already been articulated on this call. So, we've had to do infrastructure on refresh on some of our large infrastructure, specifically in the case of NetApp around our storage infrastructure. And we've worked with them on putting in place a consumption model on-premise in GovDC. I think NetApp referred to it as the Keystone model. I'm not quite sure where that name came from, but fundamentally, we for the last 18 months or so with NetApp and indeed with other vendors in the infrastructure space have not, to Simon's term, been buying any tin. We've gone towards a consumption on-premise model. NetApp were probably the earliest adopters of that with us, and certainly the most willing, and have really set the bar for us in our conversations with other people in terms of what we're looking for in this space. So we have and are now delivering somewhere around a quarter of our storage infrastructure, which is about our storage infrastructure in GovDC at the moment is around about 12 petabytes. So about 25% of that right now is on the NetApp on-demand storage model. And basically that is that scaled up model that we pay as we go, if you like. We work closely with NetApp on capacity requirements. And we use what we use and we pay for what we use, and that trues up and down through the months. So that gives us, obviously, Paul, the flexibility to be a little bit more agile around our responsiveness, and certainly has helped us through the COVID crisis as we had to scale up a lot of our data center infrastructure, and has given us the opportunity to look at our longer term kind of investment strategies outside of the kind of traditional CapEx model. So I'm going to stop there because I've kind of rambled on a little bit. I'd like maybe you could bring me back onto the agenda.
Thanks very much, Kieran. In fact, I think you've touched on a couple of things that were going through my mind about why you chose the Keystone consumption model versus CapEx. You've mentioned agility there, but I suppose one question that some in the audience might have is how did that work out in terms of procurement processes and so on, which are normally quite oriented around CapEx kind of models? Oh, we might have lost you there, Kieran, I think. No, we've lost your sound, Kieran. Okay, while the team is working to get Kieran back then, we might just move on then to Brendan. So Brendan, would you like to explain the Keystone consumption model that Kieran's been mentioning to us and how it all works?
Yeah, sure. Interesting that Kieran was wondering where the Keystone name came from. Obviously, marketing were working hard there, but essentially, it's design. It's an OpEx framework that enables our customers to transition from a traditional CapEx investment strategy to an OpEx investment strategy. So, I guess following the trends that we currently see across public cloud. So, like Kieran said, that pay as you grow or pay as you use type model. So it's been designed for organizations that want to retain some form of a public cloud and transition to OpEx, but at the same time being able to smooth out that process. I guess the challenges we've seen historically is organizations in a CapEx world have had to plan out for the last 3 to 5 years with regards to their investment strategy, which can sometimes be quite large. So if we can help them smooth that out, transition to an OpEx model, but at the same time being able to leverage the same benefits they'd see from a public cloud on-premise.
Yeah, so that sort of smoothing out of the peaks and troughs and the increase in agility, obviously, are key aspects of that. And well, I think we're just getting Kieran back at the moment. He's just dropped off the line. But we're just waiting for him to come back. Does NetApp have any models and kind of templates and so on to help organizations with these sort of consumption model plans?
Look, absolutely, and that's pretty more important than anything, because it's one of those things of looking at moving towards consumption. Consumption has to be able to deliver value. So Simon called out in his presentation that one of the challenges that the IT groups will face is how do they demonstrate that they are still deriving value out of their investment strategy, whether that's CapEx or OpEx, which basically means it's a different conversation that we need to have, but also to be able to show what those outcomes look like at the same time.
Yeah, thanks very much for expanding a little bit more for us on that one, Brendan. Kieran, looks like we've got you back.
Yeah, I shouldn't have made the gag, Paul, about the storm, eh?
That was the magic mute button that rebooted your machine. I think it's done that to me before. Yeah. No problem.
Sorry.
Kieran, we've just been covering off with Brendan a little bit about how the Keystone consumption model actually works. The question that I was going to put to you was really around that transition, to the OpEx model from CapEx, and how that works in terms of your overall planning and so on, or is that just business as usual these days?
Well, look, I think, Paul, most of the people on the call will know that historically the process has been, for big hardware refresh, there was a business case prepared, a very large capital proposal put forward to Treasury and or others. Some of it got approved, some of it didn't, and we went through that whole process. There was then a prolonged procurement process through, the go-to-market models, etc., and then, of course, the whole process of contracting, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that introduced an unpredictability. We had these very large capital investments, then we had a period of that usually are often included maintenance and so forth as part of that, and then we went into a period of kind of flattening out, and then we had that kind of burst of activity again 4 or 5 years later. So I think the OpEx model, the consumption model, is advantageous to us for a number of reasons. One is that it gives a predictability. In other words, it flattens that, and we have a continuous or a reasonably predictable OpEx or cost model over a period of time. From our point of view, of course, it also gets us out of that whole obsolescence conversation. We don't have to end-of-life kit. We don't have to worry about the refresh of that kit and so forth. But yeah, I think the initial procurement activity is pretty intense. It is challenging for procurement to write some of these consumption service type contracts and models. But once done, of course, a bit like the product itself, it becomes evergreen in the environment. So that's really advantageous. I think the other side is the finance people can struggle with it a little bit, because it does obviously it takes out the capital demand, but it lifts up the OpEx ongoing operational cost. And that's something that all parts of government really have to adjust to. So we've been doing this now over in a number of kind of technology and product areas now for a number of years. I think we've started to kind of get good at it, but it certainly was challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. That's been helpful to have a bit more insight coming through from you on that. Well, we're going to segue from that to a second polling question, which is, what model would work better for your agency? A capital expenditure or Keystone consumption model, or a mix of both? If you could just, folks in the audience, if you could just click through onto the polls, and the same with our panelists, and we'll have a little look at what people think on that. And that's thinking of today's situation, obviously, within your agency. Okay, I'm seeing all the votes starting to roll in now. Just let it run for another minute. gosh, it's a neck and neck race between a mix of both and a Keystone consumption model. But what is really interesting is that nobody is calling our capital expenditure as the way that they think it'll work better for their agency right now. It looks like now we're getting a pretty strong signal that it's a mix of both. Yeah, mix of both followed by Keystone. Seems to be what is coming through fairly clearly there. Well, thank you to folks in the audience for that. Look, we've only got a few minutes left. We've got a question which I'm going to just go on to in one sec from the audience. But just before I get to that, is that a surprise? Does anybody in the panel want to respond to that poll we just did then?
If you don't mind, I'll chime in. Given the fact that I do talk to hundreds of customers and many different government agencies, this is pretty much what I would expect. I think a lot of people, at least at this stage, are looking to get that mix. I think a lot of people do want to move to a full consumption model at some point in time, but I think there's going to be a transition.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, Matt, if I can just jump in on there. As you saw when I was talking, the government is certainly trying to drive down CapEx.
Right.
The thing that I'm not sure of is that state and federal treasuries have sort of caught up with the implications of that in terms of the transition from the traditional CapEx funding models to OpEx, and the fact that once you've transitioned to this consumption OpEx-based model, you lose a little bit of flexibility in terms of what your investment options are each year.
Yes, you're dead on.
Yeah, I absolutely saw that in my time as well. Well, look, I'm going to we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get in this question from Julie, who asks, with this move to the cloud, where does Content Manager, i.e. TRIM, for managing all files fit into this? Should we be using the cloud, such as SharePoint Online, for saving files now? Do any folks from the government side have a view on it?
I'll have a bit of a go at that. So, Julie, lots of New South Wales government agencies are running their own content manager or TRIM infrastructure, colo-hosted in GovDC usually. There is a marketplace provider in the GovDC cloud zone that's providing TRIM as a service, and a number of agencies are using that. But certainly other agencies have been looking at moving to other public cloud-based options. SharePoint, part of Office 365, is obviously one of those, but there are other options as well as SharePoint. So it's a mix of all of those.
Thanks very much for that answer. And Kieran, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything further to that. Or...
No, look, again, as Simon said, look, we that is New South Wales Health, we offer TRIM as a service hosted in government data center. It's a service that eHealth offers to the agencies of New South Wales Health. It's I mean, there's mixed views about it. I think certainly that there's a view that we need to look at a longer term solution for document management, but it's a massive undertaking and exercise. So early days, I would say, on that one, Paul.
Thank you, Kieran. Well, look, we've come to the end of our time for questions. If there were any final thoughts that people did have from the audience, feel free to send those in. We'll get in touch with you in the next few days. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session and participating in the polls. And we'll be sending you a follow-up email with a link to the recording. So again, thank you, everyone, for participating. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.